Hello, my name's Colleen Getty, and I'm with The Room to Write, and we are filming another episode of The Journey of a Story, where we talk to local writers. And today we are talking to Monica Acker, who's the author of Brave Like Mom. Welcome, Monica.
It's good to be here.
We're going to start out the way we always start out with letting the audience know how real writers write and how they write in all different ways. So maybe just describe what your process is. You know, do you have a favorite seat or time of day or instrument or whatever?
Yeah, so I write on Fridays. Like, this is my day because I work Monday through Thursday. I used to write during nap time. I loved nap time. That was a wonderful time of life, but none of my kids nap anymore. So I reserve Fridays when they're in school, when I'm not working, as my writerly things day, so this counts. And then I write in what I call the nooks and crannies of life, right? So it's like, oh, someone has soccer practice and I can sit in the car, you know, or like who's at gymnastics. So
I love that, nooks and crannies of life. That's perfect.
And when on my Fridays, I like to sit at, we redid our house, which was really lovely because I used to just like kind of sit on the corner of the couch and balance my laptop on my legs. But now we have like a dining table with a bay window and I can see nature, and it brings me sort of like that joy. And my neighbors have a beautiful garden, so I look at their garden because we don't have one, but they do. So that's my like peaceful spot with my cup of tea. One of my neighbors, she's a little girl, and she made mug rugs, and she like donated the money to an organization. So, but they're like the perfect little coaster. It's my little mug rug.
Makes adorable. Yeah. So you set yourself up for coziness.
Yes, cozy's important.
All right, and is it always on your computer or?
A lot of my writing goes onto the computer, but sometimes I need to step away. Sometimes I need to dummy, so I need to see what my page turns are going to look like. So with picture books, usually you're going to work with like 32 pages. Okay. Sometimes you'll get 40. It's always in multiples of 8.
Why is that?
It has to do with printing things and how papers fold. That's all I got for you. Right. But so sometimes I need to dummy it out to make sure the pacing is right. So I'll just take a bunch of computer paper and fold it and make my own little mini book, and make really awful sketches because I'm not an illustrator. And then handwrite out what's going to go on each page, so I can make sure that I've got the right pacing, because I don't want to spend too much time in the exposition and then like you're almost done with the book.
Right.
So that kind of thing I'll do. Sometimes I don't bring my computer with me when I'm in the car, like those nooks and crannies, so I will have my notebooks for that stuff, and I'll jot stuff down and then transfer it to the computer when I get home.
Do you leave your notebooks in the car, or you just always have them with you?
I carry something with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, you know, some writer, and I guess the good thing is for picture books, you're not necessarily writing thousands of words.
Correct.
So the nooks and crannies could almost be the perfect setup for that. And that's, how do you discipline yourself so that you actually do, like, if a nook shows up and you just want to zone out, or are you very good about being like, this is my writing time?
No, I'm not very good. No. But if I give myself a goal before, so if I say, okay, I was really good last year when my daughter was doing dance, because I was like, okay, at dance today, I'm going to, sometimes I would print out my manuscript and then I would just go through and like edit it with a pen, or at dance today, I'm going to, write like this one tricky part, and I would just like have that part and know like I'm going to work on those words, because it's picture book writing is sweet spots about 500 to 600 words. So yeah.
And I love that goal setting. I feel like that's sort of the key, you know?
Yeah, because if I don't tell myself what I'm going to do, I will go on social media. That's
right.
I will not do what I'm supposed to do.
It takes a lot of discipline these days, and especially if you're a parent and you're trying to work around all other people's schedules. I think that's a hot tip that you just gave everybody, honestly, and me. I need that discipline. So we're talking about Brave Like Mom today, which is this your first book ever that you've written? What was that process?
So this is the first book I have published. It's definitely not the first one I wrote. The first thing I wrote, I heard you should go to a critique group. So I showed up at a critique group at the Writer's Loft, and they didn't hate it. And I was like, great, now I get an agent. So I queried 4 agents like right off the bat with the first thing I ever wrote. That was a learning curve. Don't do that.
No.
So and then I learned from that, and it actually, the kindest agent wrote me back and said, it's so many encouraging things. I wish I remembered exactly what it was, but basically like, keep going. Like this is a no. This is not the story for me, but keep going. Keep working on this.
Nice.
You're going to get there if you keep at it.
Oh, good.
And so I did.
And so that was your first book you ever tried to get published? Not this one, the unnamed one.
Yes.
And what happened after that? So you didn't lose hope. You just decide, okay, I'm going to start another book, or did you keep revising that one and want that one to succeed, or how did that process go?
I think I did both. So because picture books are a shorter story format, I feel like I can pump out, like I get ideas a lot, and it allowed me to just, especially when I didn't know what I was doing, because there wasn't that little like editor. Like now that I know more, I judge myself more. But when I was first starting, I was just like, ooh, that's a story. Ooh, that's a story. But I think that was great that I didn't know as much, because it got me to just practice writing and to develop as a writer. And another thing I do is grab my phone and jot something down, like in the middle of the night, because my phone plays white noise for me to sleep.
Nice.
But then if I wake up in the middle of the night and I go, oh, I got an idea. Sometimes you wake up the next morning and you're like, I can't read that. but sometimes there's something good on there. And so like using like the notes app on my phone.
Yeah. And so have you always been a writer? Would you have written all your life and now you're just sort of thinking of picture books, or what's your writer persona?
I uncovered like all my angsty teenager writings recently. So I think I've always had a writer in me. The angsty teenage Monica wrote like creepy poems. Like everyone died. Like their heads were cut off. Like very different. And then
But that's healthy. You got it out on paper.
I did. It was
on paper. That's the healthy component there.
Yeah, there were ghosts everywhere. Like I think I was like into like I was like a Buffy the Vampire fan. Like right. So, but then I didn't do a lot of writing through college. I'm also like a theater kid, so I did get very much into that. But I think that helps with writing, because you get the idea of voice and character, so it really all applies.
Right.
And then I went from that to teaching.
Okay.
And I really backed off of writing, but became the biggest fan of picture books.
So
and
teaching theater?
I started teaching preschool.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Which is
went
like
through a
theater.
master's, but like I landed in pre-K. Yeah. So it was like
so what happened
like
in
winding
theater?
road.
Only because I do feel like that is sort of there's a great connection with writing and theater.
So the school that I worked at, I feel like I should back it up a little bit. So I knew I wanted to teach, and the college that I went to, I thought I wanted to teach high school history, and this college would be perfect for that, because they offered a degree in secondary education. And then I did field work, and I was like, they're as big as I am. Like I was like, maybe I don't want the big people. But I loved the school, and I didn't want to transfer, and I did some research, and I needed a master's in education to really be successful. And so I decided to continue on at that school and just study what interests me. So I studied theater and art.
Nice.
And then went straight to getting my master's in education from there. So, and then I felt like that really applies. I mean, teaching it's a little bit of theater.
Right. It's a lot of theater.
A lot of theater.
Especially the younger you go, right?
Yeah. And then what I loved is the school that I ended up working at, I also helped with their theatrical productions. So I was doing like middle school productions.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so theater, history, teaching, and now
writing.
How? It just dropped from the sky?
Yeah, so as a pre-K teacher, I fell in love with picture books, and I would something would happen, and I go, ooh, that would make a great story. But I thought you had to be a writer to write the story, and I just like would pack it away, and like, okay, someone should write that. you know?
Right. Not me.
Yeah, I never thought it could be me. And then after I have three girls, and after my third was born, I felt like I was kind of finding myself again. We had, moved to a different state, and I was figuring out who I was. And the local bookstore, Whiteland Books, had a panel, and it was, I believe it was called, I could be slightly off, but So You Want to Be a Picture Book Writer. And I remember just like mulling about it. Like I saw advertisements for it, and I was thinking about it, and then I finally looked at my husband and I said, I'm gonna go to this thing because I think I do. And I went, and one of the authors on the panel was Josh Funk, and he is an amazing picture book writer, but he's also a software engineer.
Right.
And I was like,
of course he is.
I was like, wait, what? Like, you can like write picture books and not like that's not what you went to school for, and
right.
like and
right.
That,
I mean, that's like a light went off. It sounds
absolutely, yeah. So that gave me the confidence to try it, and I have to give like so much credit to Liz at Whiteland Books, because
she's awesome.
At the panel, all of the authors who were there kept saying, I joined a critique group, or I had a critique group, and so at the very end, Liz was like, aha, sounds like if you want to be successful, you need a critique group. So she said, anyone who's interested, leave your name and your email, and let's see if we can form a group. And so like right from there, I had a group of writers that I worked with like right off the bat. So I had support, which I think is really, really important.
And you have people to see, everyone can think two things, either what they're writing is wonderful or what they're writing is terrible. Either one of those needs to be confirmed or denied by a separate, unbiased group, right? And
Absolutely.
I think that's almost like part of the key of a critique group is you're getting somebody who just wants you to be successful in your writing. And if it's not up to snuff, they're hopefully going to help you do that in a good way. And if it is up to snuff, they're going to affirm that. So I feel like it's like the reflection you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they help you with your writing. They help you with everything, right? They're the community that lifts you up. And I have one critique partner who once said, we rise like the tide, right? Because we all make each other better. Right. And so our skills grow and grow and grow. And it's been really interesting. That original critique group kind of, poor COVID, right? It just,
I know.
Yeah, so it kind of crumbled. But I've met other amazing writers along the way, and so I have a couple different groups that I'm a part of.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and it's amazing because we all started just learning, and now it's, I think in my one group we're all agented. We all either have books that are out or coming out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And it helps to have all sorts of different people.
Yes.
Because everyone, the critiques groups I'm in, I feel like it's like everyone has their thing that they hone in on that's all helpful.
Oh, yeah.
In the end, so having that mix of people is always helpful. And if you have to switch a group or whatever, if it crumbles, you're still going to meet people that they know what good writing looks like, and they'll help you get there, and you will help them get there in turn too. So that's awesome. So you had your first book. They didn't hate it. You sent it out. It didn't get picked up. I guess, first of all, where did this come along in the process? Like, where was the spark of the idea for Brave Like Mom? And then how are we here with your beautiful book in real form?
Writing is such a journey, right? I tried to do all the things, right? I kept writing. I joined SCBWI. I went to a conference, do a lot of networking. I had the pleasure of meeting Haley Barrett, who is a local author in Reading, and one of her tips or pieces of advice was, I was going to be at a conference, and she said, volunteer, always volunteer. And she said, and then make yourself the friendliest puppy in the corner. Like you are like the non-threatening Labradoodle, right? Like, so that you're not like on top of the agents and editors who are there and being like, I wrote a book, do you want to read it?
Right.
But you're just like, hey, I like your shirt, like just make yourself like approachable.
Right.
And that was such a great piece of advice, because I ended up having wonderful conversations instead of looking at these agents and editors as like, oh, you know, like shaky
Right.
and like, what do
Like
I
they
do?
weren't human.
Yeah. And they weren't looking at me like this overeager, you know,
Right.
just wanting to sell them something.
Right.
We were able to make connections. So between like live connections at conferences, I've only been to like 3 because of COVID.
Yeah.
But then also connecting on social media. Twitter is like my happy spot. I know everybody has their own way that they like to connect, but I like Twitter because it's just words, and
Right.
I use words. I don't. I struggle with like Instagram. They're like, you need an image. I'm like, I make words. Like,
Right. And so any tips on Twitter, connecting on Twitter or networking on Twitter that you can offer up to the audience?
yeah, make sure to, if you just tweet your thought and you don't connect, if you have like 3 followers, then like only your 3 followers are going to see it. But if you apply a hashtag or you @ someone, so, you know, I might say like, it was great to sit down with @ Colleen Getty today, you know, and then @ WCAT Studios, right? Because then their followers will see it too.
Oh, okay.
And it's, the other thing is just always like shouting people out. So I'd be like, you know, what a great time we had, which would be totally honest, but also the more positivity you put out there, I think the more you get as well.
Right.
Because I have heard people are like, oh, Twitter is a dark, scary place. And I'm like, not the Twitter that I'm on, because I'm in a world where like everyone's supporting each other.
Right. Yeah. No, I think I can see how that could be. You just like in life, you can decide to go this way or that way with how you approach it. So that's good advice. So you
Oh, right, the book.
came along and no, I interrupted you and got you off on another tangent, but we'll hone it back to where did this beautiful book come from?
So writing had become just a piece of me, like it became like part of my DNA. And in 2018, my sister-in-law was diagnosed with cancer, and it was stage 4, so it was aggressive. And she wasn't able to go for chemo at one point, and this kind of poured out of me, and it wasn't this. It was it was like more of a poem. It's just like a free form. It was this, right?
Poetry. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
People,
and this became this.
poetry's amazing.
But I just needed, I don't know, it just became something that I had to say. But that was it. I wrote it once, and it was for her, and I sent it, and then I didn't touch it. And then at the end of 2019, she had gotten into this, on this one medication, and she was doing great. Like for most of 2019, like they went camping, like she was working out at the gym, like she was doing so well. But at the end of 2019, that medication wasn't working anymore, and it became clear that we were going to need to say goodbye, which was, it was tough. And I broke this out, and I just started working on it, and it became something that helped me heal.
Right.
And I think it was just part of my like grieving process, because she passed away in January 2020. So it was, and it was just for me for a while. And then I shared it with one group that I have, and I just was like, I don't know if this is anything, but I've been working on this, and I kind of just want somebody else to read it.
Right.
And one of the members of the group messaged me privately and said, you need to get this out to people. They need this. And I was like, okay. Okay. And that became my mission, was like, and again, I think it was all part of that healing process though. Like it gave me a mission. Like I'm going to work on this so I can help other people.
Right.
And it made me feel better.
Right. And it's tangible. I mean, like when you're going through grieving process, there's just so much that you can't put your finger on, and you don't have it in front of you to either get angry at or manipulate with words or whatever. But I agree. I feel like words and feelings, they just, when they get together, they can be very helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah. And what I love about this story is that it's not a story about loss. And I think that was probably important in my healing, was that I wasn't writing about a sad moment. I was writing about how amazing and strong and brave both my sister-in-law was and her kids were and are.
Right.
And it's about how she gave that to them. Like, that's her gift. So this is about that strength and that bravery and that fierceness, because I had to do the rule of threes, so I had to find another one. That is inside of us. Yeah, right? There's my mascot.
Here's like the lion.
Because the lions are a symbol of bravery. But it was inside all along, right? So it's like whatever life throws our way. And what I did, I didn't realize I was, again, it like poured out, right? But I gave examples of like everyday bravery, and then, you know, illness, like bravery in the face of illness. So there's both, and you're like, oh, like I am that, like I have that in me.
Right.
That's my hope, at least. I hope kids get this and they read it and they realize, like, whoa, I am brave. Like, I do all these things.
That's awesome. And that's, I love that that's your focus. It's not just going down the road of grief, but coming out with something positive for the kids that are reading it, because it's a picture book.
Right.
And I think we were chatting a little earlier about how it can be hard to talk to kids about grief, or there's so many topics that are hard to talk about, and they don't need to be going through an actual loss of a parent even. It's just so many things in life. Even just this situation we've been in for the last 2 years, there's having a book as sort of the jumping off point for talking about things can be super helpful.
Absolutely.
So you sent this to your critique group. They said people need to get a hold of this. You started working on it, and then how did we get to a published book?
There's a lot of luck involved. I continued to work on it, and I started querying agents where I had a couple of different stories I thought were contenders, that they were, I'd gotten positive feedback from critique groups. So I tried to match the story to the agent. And so I had sent this story out to a couple, but I wasn't sure. Like, it doesn't follow your traditional story arc, and I didn't know if that's the kind of story agents would be looking for from a new author. But there is this one who was a new agent at the time, and she wasn't taking on clients when we first connected over this story. I had won a contest on her blog through Twitter.
Oh,
right?
Twitter
It's the
again.
magic of social media. And when I won a critique from another author. And so I just CC'd her on it too, because I was like, well, maybe she has feedback. Like, it doesn't hurt to just...
Right.
She could just be like, thank you I'm glad she got it. That was it. But instead, she wrote back to me and said, this is like I'm not going to get the words quoted, but basically this is something special, and keep working on it. And let me know where you go with it.
Wow.
And then we had been friendly before this on Twitter, because she was also a writer. And she would check in every now and then, and she'd say, there's this opportunity, and you should look at it, and maybe this story's right for this person. And then she started taking on clients, and she contacted me. So I've been getting rejections from other agents, but then she contacted me and said, send me everything you have. And I was like, okay, I have a lot. Right. I think I sent like 6 stories. And she wrote back, and she was like, okay, I like about half of these, but she's like, if you're okay with that, like, do you want to do this? And it was a little bit of a process. Like, she had me do some rewrites until we got to that place, but we got there, and then I ended up signing with that agent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then she started subbing it, and originally it was about having cancer when we first subbed it.
And
because that was
means
sending it on submission.
Okay, to other editors and stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
Usually do it in rounds. So we would send to 8 to 12 editors, and that way you can take the feedback and then apply it if you feel like there's something worth applying, right? Right. So originally it was about cancer, because that was what my sister-in-law was going through. But there was some great feedback from these editors, and there were some beautiful, like, the kindest rejections, but they were like, we feel like it's a little, the overarching theme was it's a little too niche, right? There's just not enough of an audience to be able to, and they're in a business, and like, we're not going to make money. So we decided to try and make it broader. And it was great because in the process of doing that, I realized that I was pulling some things from my lived experience, because when I was a kid, my mom had been sick for a while, and not cancer sick, but she was in the hospital.
Right.
As an adult, I went through some health stuff. So like I knew what it's like from the parent side. So I was able to pull a little bit more, and I think that only made it better.
Right. And that's the funny thing is sometimes it's annoying when you have to revise. Someone says, oh, it's not quite there. But then you end up, I don't know that I've ever spoken to an author that thought their book was worse for having revised it. They usually are sort of surprised and happy that they had to take it a little further.
Yeah, it's good to be pushed.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, so congratulations.
Thank
and
you.
so how was it? Did they just match you up with an illustrator, or the rest was driving off into the sunset, or what?
Yeah, so it was kind of poetic that the publishing house that bought this book it's a smaller publishing house called Beaming Books. Okay. But they're located in Minnesota, and my sister-in-law is from Minnesota, so it just felt like a circle and like really special.
That is special.
And they paired me up with an illustrator, and then you're just like,
right,
you just
waiting.
Wait.
Okay.
Right. There was a few edits to make with my editor, but she basically felt like it was in really good shape when she got it. So we just changed a couple of things, really simple, and then it was waiting because I don't get to draw because I can't. I not very well.
Right.
And then it's cool. It's such a process, right? So then you get these like, there's nothing, and then you get an email, and it's like, here's sketches for the cover, and you're like, oh yay!
Right.
It's so exciting. Or like, here's some character sketches, and you're like, yeah. So it's those fun. The emails usually come through on Friday for whatever reason. So it's like fun Friday emails.
That's awesome. Good timing for the weekend.
Yeah.
Huh?
So there's that process, and then it came in the mail, which was super cool. And then I've watched other authors do all of these things. I've watched the unboxing videos. Like I knew all of these things would happen. Like I did a cover reveal when the cover first came out. Like I knew all those steps. Nothing ever felt like overwhelming.
Right.
My kids took out my book and started reading it, and my heart melted.
Yes.
I was like, oh. Like one of my youngest she's like a newer reader. So my middle daughter was reading most of the passage, and then my youngest would just chime in and go, my mom is brave. And I was like,
oh, that's like a tearjerker moment.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And that felt good for you, and I'm sure it felt great for your sister-in-law to see that her life to be a legacy like that. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry.
I hope. It means a lot that my brother's been super supportive, and can I grab the book?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So my kids keep saying, Mom, you gotta sell more books because you have to dedicate some to us. But this is dedicated to my nieces. And it just says, to my strong, brave, fierce nieces, Etta and Nina.
Oh, how sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. I'm sure your whole family is so proud of you, and this is a great example of making something positive out of something that's not.
Oh yeah, life gave us some like serious lemons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So congratulations. Was it always called Brave Like Mom?
No, that's a great question. It was called My Mom is Strong. And there was a lot of discussion over the title because the publishing company felt it was important that parents didn't go, oh, that's a great Mother's Day book, just based on the title, because they're like, it's got an emotional punch to it.
Right.
You want to make sure you know what you're picking up.
Right.
And then we talked about title plus maybe a subtitle.
Okay.
But I was like, oh, the subtitles all sounded a little like clinical,
right.
and, like, less warm to me. And so we had like a little back and forth, and I said, could the illustration carry the message of that this isn't, just your every like Mother's Day book? And I think she did.
Yeah.
I think she captured it.
And your illustrator is?
Perrin Kim. She lives in Germany.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, I don't know if we're ever going to meet her.
Yeah.
She's from South Korea.
Oh, wow.
So she's like, has all this, like, I'm like, whenever I give blood, they're like, when was the last time you left the country? And I'm like, It's been a while.
But you're going to meet this illustrator. You got to
Maybe
get to
one
Germany.
day, yeah.
Oktoberfest. Wow. Well, congratulations, Monica. I know it's coming out November 1st, is
Yes,
it?
yeah.
So you must be getting so excited. Anything, I mean, you've had this whole journey, and it's going to continue because now you have to put your kids' names into other books. Anything you want to leave our audience with in terms of like some parting advice?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely said I wrote, and I still write, lots of stories. And I don't know for sure, but I think it's interesting that the one story that has gotten the most positive feedback, the one that got picked up by the agent, the one that sold, is the one that came directly from my heart. And just that, the vulnerability on the page. And I think maybe by doing that, others were able to connect. So I've got to figure out how to do that again so I can sell more books.
That's important. Thank you. Thanks, Monica.
Thank you.
And if anybody else would like to come into the studio and talk about their journey from idea to publication, give us a call or contact us at theroomtowrite.org.